Hello, everybody. How are you all? Hope you are all doing fine. And yes, for my yesterday's promise, today we are going to discuss about the stages of teaching speaking. What are the different stages of teaching speaking? I shall write more on the board so you can even copy if you need it. And notes are going to be necessary, of course, so please jot them down in your notebook as well. There are three stages of teaching speaking. The very first stage is known as early stage. The very first stage is known as the early stage out of the three stages. So what do they do? In the first stage is it is also known as presentation stage. The teacher presents the new language item to be taught, and the learners will listen to the teacher very carefully. They try to understand what is being taught and through that language item, and they will try to understand the form, they try to understand the function and the degree of formality of language in the various stage. So let us write that down. It is also known as presentation stage. Presentation stage as a language item is presented to the learners to aware them about forms, functions, and degree of formality of language. So, presentation stage, in the very first stage, what do they do? They present the language item, the teacher presents the language item, the students try to understand, and they try to use it accurately whenever they are told to speak or told to play the role of anything when any context is created. So they learn various language functions such as permission, asking for permission, how to ask for permission. They will learn. Will you please allow me to do this? Will you please allow me to speak? Or may I? Those kinds of structures will be taught to them. So they will get to learn about permission, they'll get to know how to greet, they'll learn about greetings, they'll learn about requesting. Will you please? Will you please? And will you please help me do this? Will you please help me explain and understand this? These sort of things are taught in the early stage. So there are various classroom activities that can be done, which are also known as classroom procedures. What are the classroom procedures for this stage? Classroom procedures. As the teacher presents the language item, a context is created. So creating a context, creating context is the first classroom procedure in the early stage. Creating context means creating a situation where students are expected to perform. Students are expected to involve in communication or develop the conversation. So creating context. And what next can be done? Elicitation. Elicitation, elicitation of language item. To be taught. Elicitation means expression of the language item that is taught, and then they are told to respond. Students are told to respond and participate. Participate. Some model sentences are given by the teachers. Model sentences are given, and then at last, finally, they are checked to make sure that the students have understood and to make sure whether they have understood or not. Okay, to check that one, the teacher will try to evaluate to some extent. Yet this is the very first stage of speaking. There are two more stages to teach them many things and to train them. This is the beginning, as they are already taught about the language item a bit. They are already introduced to that one. They will try to form similar kinds of sentences, and they'll try to use the vocabulary whatever they have from within. Okay, so that is what is done in the early stage of teaching speaking. The second stage is now controlled stage. Control, sometimes it is controlled by the teacher, sometimes it is controlled by the students themselves. Controlled stage. When any baby is born, in order to teach the baby to walk, the parents, what do? They hold their hands and help them walk, to practice walking. That is how they're controlling their walk. And here, students are being controlled by the teacher in the beginning to learn to speak. Controlled conversation stage. Controlled conversation stage, the second stage. And this stage is also known as the practice stage, as the students will be involved in a lot of activities, communication activities. So this is known as the practice stage. And how is the practice done? In the beginning itself, they were told to speak to some extent if they can, but in the second stage, the teacher will lead through the drills, the practice samples, through the drills. Drills are presented. And what are the different types of drills? I'll tell you what they are first. Okay, mechanical drills are there. Under mechanical drills, we have two more drills. They are repetition drill, and then substitution drill. Okay, through the mechanical drills, what do the teachers do, or what does the teacher do? Teacher will give a statement, a sentence, and students will try to repeat the same. Like, I am right now teaching in your classroom, and the students will say, you are right now teaching in our classroom. That is how they are expected to repeat the same sentence, so that it will be easy for them to generate similar kind of sentences later. So that is what we call repetition drill. And in substitution, suppose they say Hari is playing football. If a sentence is given to the students, this sentence is given to them: Hari is playing a football, and then they are supposed to substitute any one of the word. Okay, let's say volleyball. Another word called volleyball is given. So Hari is playing volleyball can be said by the students. So they can use the sentences or the words as per necessary according to situations. That is what we call substitution drill. These drills will help a lot to learn any language. Another is a bit advanced drill, that is called meaningful drill. Meaningful drill. Here, by meaningful drill, what it means is, if a teacher gives a first statement, or if the teacher tells them to begin anything, or let's say the first statement, teacher says, I don't feel like teaching today, I don't feel like taking the class today, and one of the students in the group will say, okay, in that case, maybe you're not feeling well, uh, and another one will say, maybe it's better to visit the doctor to check if anything is wrong, maybe you can take rest. So there can be series of statements spoken as dialogues by the students. So at this stage, students control the conversation to some extent by themselves. It is self-controlling stage. Okay, meaningful drills, it is self-controlling. controlling stage, or you can call it drill also. So they control the conversation themselves in this one. So this is a bit advanced, and this is expected to overcome. This will overcome the weakness of mechanical drill. Mechanical drill, or the first type of drill we just discussed. The second is meaningful drill. Okay, and the third one, we're discussing about the second stage, and within that we are discussing the third stage, that is known as discourse chain. So at last, discourse chain. What does it mean by discourse chain? It is also the way to speak to one another, to develop a set of dialogues for conversation. So discourse chain, it means discourse. The word discourse here means discussion chain. The teacher will give the context, then the teacher will say, introduce yourself to each other. Then the student will start talking, and they will start introducing themselves and asking in return about their friends. And that conversation in the given context will continue a little further with some more dialogues. So they will have more levity in this one, in the discourse chain. Longer conversation. Context is given. Context is given by the teacher. And then context is given. The students or the learners will have more liberty of using the sentences of their choice, of using or using, driving the conversation themselves in a direction they want to. So these are the three things. So what are the classroom procedures suitable for controlled conversation stage? So here drills are presented. Classroom procedure, CP. Okay, drills are presented, or drills are given for practice, and they should be meaningful. Drills should be meaningful, otherwise it's very difficult to achieve the objective of teaching. Speaking should be meaningful, and they should be carefully designed by the teacher or the facilitator, whoever is there. And then some controlled activities will also be there. Some controlled communication activities. Communication activities will also be there. Activities will be given, and students are given more opportunity to share their ideas, to speak or to use the language in real life situation, creating the context inside the classroom. And this will end the second stage of teaching speaking. So by this stage, the students will have been more confident in themselves about speaking in English, about speaking and sharing ideas related to the language item they are taught. So now the final stage at last comes independence. Whatever we do, at last we get independence as a reward. And independence brings responsibility. Free conversation stays. Free conversation stays. So this is the last stage of teaching speaking to the students, to the learners. This is also known as production stage. It is known as production stage because the students are, as I already said, the students will have become a bit confident, a bit knowledgeable, and they will have been introduced to certain structures of various language items, so they are capable of producing the language themselves. That is why this stage is called production stage. So students are expected, or learners are expected to perform desired activities independently. Independently means without the help of a teacher. Teacher is just a supervisor by the time they come to this stage. So desired activities independently, and they can work in a group, they can work in pairs. And then what does this stage encourage? This encourages the creative use of language. Creative use encourages creative use of language. This encourages the ability to speak spontaneously. So encourages creative use of language, spontaneity, and self-confidence, because the students are allowed to speak on or in the given context themselves. So they are the ones to to carry forward the conversation, and the teacher will just be facilitating, and teacher will just be supervising them to make sure that they have learned well, and the expected objective is met from the chapter. So classroom procedure, what kind of classroom procedure can we expect in this one? Creating context is kind of common classroom procedure. Creating context always, because we are supposed to use the language that we've learnt in real life situations, and we can't have all the real life situations inside the four walls of a classroom. That is why it is very necessary to give the context and create one, so that the students will uh, you know play the role according to the characters, according to the situation given. So creating context, and then they they are given the opportunity for free expression. Free expression. They can work in group or pair work, group work, because this will enhance confidence as well. And finally, our only objective is to make students comfortable in speaking and enhancing the communicative competence in them, which will be achieved if we thoroughly stick to these stages and teach without hesitation and planning it scientifically and properly. So that was for today. Thank you.